Okay, welcome everyone to the regular public meeting of the Swanton Village Trustees, Monday, July 14th, 2025 at 6 p.m. First thing to do is call the public hearing to order. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 3, alternative presentation for Vermont 78 Bridge 6 over the Missisquoi River. Lucas, if you'd like to introduce
And this
yourself.
is the public hearing.
This is the public hearing.
This is the public hearing for the bridge, just so we're all clear.
So kind of like a combo then.
After. Yeah.
So we're gonna let the folks from V-Trans do their presentation, and then we'll have an open public comments.
You go ahead and share the presentation. Alright, looks like it's up there for everyone to see. So as I mentioned, we're going to be specifically talking about Bridge 6, which carries Route 78 over the Missisquoi River. And here today, my name is Tiffany Card. Sorry, I was going to ask her to go to the next slide. But
She will. We're killing the AC because it's too loud.
no, fair enough. I'll pause until.
Next slide.
Yes, please. So my name is Tiffany Card, and I work for a consultancy that was hired by V-Trans to look into this project. So with us today from V-Trans is Laura Stone and Jonathan Griffin. Three of us are, kind of representing the project management of where the project stands to date. So if we go to the next slide. The purpose of this meeting, quick rundown. We're trying to provide an understanding of how we've approached the project thus far, go over what the project constraints are, go through what our recommended alternative is, and then provide the opportunity for feedback, for questions, for concerns, and kind of open the floor. Go to the next one. Next slide. Oh yeah, good. Delay. So, I know everyone here is probably very familiar with where the bridge is. We always include the location map. So we have the zoomed out location map on screen, and then we can go to the next slide, which kind of has the aerial image, so you can see the bridge crossing here of the river. You can make out the dam immediately upstream of the structure. So this is the exact location that we're talking about. And the project is really focused on the limits of the bridge. We're not carried significantly far off into the approaches. So for our overview, we'll go through the V-Trans project development process, kind of like a high overview of what V-Trans's process is and then like where we stand in the process. We'll give an overview of the project itself. We'll go over the existing conditions of the bridge. We'll go through the alternatives that we've gone through to date, and then come to our recommended alternative. It's actually alternatives, but we'll get there. We'll talk about maintenance of traffic, as we know that's always a big concern, especially for this crossing. And we'll go over anticipated schedule, summarize what we kind of went through, and then open it up for questions.
You could just need to minimize for a second. Someone's trying to get in.
No worries.
Okay.
So this is a high-level view of the V-Trans project development process. So you can see that we're very early on. So we're in what we call the project definition phase. What we've recently done is completed what we call a scoping report. And what that does is it goes through and identifies the resources that are going to be impacted by the project or potentially impacted by the project, goes through the project constraints specific to the site. We go through the different alternatives that are viable for the location. We engage the public and get feedback. We had a local concerns meeting earlier on, probably about a year ago now, where we kind of started that process with the public. So following up again now. And then we're trying to build consensus with, the Village of Swanton on the direction forward that we want to take this to the next step, which, we're not at design yet, as you can see on the screen. So before we go to design, we obviously want to take all of these steps and then build the consensus before we move forward. So before we go through the alternatives, we always just like to do a really quick overview of the terms we're going to use. So when we're talking about a bridge, there's a bunch of different elements that I might say or might speak to that might be unfamiliar. So we'll start at the top and work our way down. So everyone's able to see the bridge railing, which is a safety mechanism to prevent vehicles, obviously, from going over the sides. But then you have the deck surface treatment, which is most typically pavement. That's the most common one that people would see. But you can also have concrete type surfaces on top. And then the deck is usually a reinforced concrete element, and that's the riding surface that the vehicles are going to be going on. That is going to be supported by what we call the superstructure, most commonly comprised of beams. In this bridge case, it's going to be steel beams, and they run parallel to the direction of traffic, and they're supported by bearing devices. Those are meant to help accommodate the movement. Bridges expand and contract due to weather and temperature changes. The bearings help to handle that movement. And that makes up what we call the superstructure, and then that sits on the substructure. So that's going to be all the concrete elements that you see, the piers and the water that the beams sit on, and then at the ends we call them abutments, but they're basically just walls from what you can see visually that support the bridge. So if you have any questions on any terms that I say during the presentation, feel free to ask, but we just kind of wanted to give a quick rundown before I dive into it. So we also want to talk about Act 153, which is a legislative, piece of legislature that definitely affects greatly what we're going to discuss here, because it has to do with funding. So it basically speaks to the local share of a project in terms of what the village's percentage of the project would be based on the type of project as well as the maintenance of traffic selected. So this chart here is really just showing that if you were to do a rehabilitation as opposed to a full bridge replacement, you're going to have a different percentage share. And then similarly, if you close the road during construction versus opting to have a staged construction situation or a temporary bridge where it remains open during construction, you will also have a different percent share. So you can see here that the smallest local share is going to be if you do a rehabilitation and you allow the road to be closed, and then the highest percentage would be if you replace the entire bridge and required that the roadway be open in some capacity during the construction. Next one. You can go to the next slide. So now I'm just going to talk about the existing conditions of Bridge 6. So all roadways have different types of classifications. This is a rural principal arterial. The bridge itself has 4 spans, and we call it stringer or multi-beam. That's the beams that we're seeing, the steel beams that support it. It has a max span length of 80 feet. The overall bridge is about 300 feet. And we're not, we don't have a heavy skew relative to the waterway. It's pretty much perpendicular. It was built in 1966, and it's owned by the Village of Swanton. So as far as the condition of the structure itself, there's been advanced deterioration of the abutment joints. We know that there was, a joint rehab basically done most recently, which was, obviously beneficial. I actually went out and took some pictures of it for the meeting. It looks good. But the joints in general, that's a good, first step on the joints, but the joints are the most likely to deteriorate, and below the joint there's also going to be the continuation of the leaching of salts and water, and the structure that kind of supports the joints is going to also need to be addressed in terms of deterioration that's happening there from the water and the salts kind of still getting down through the joint. The beam ends and the diaphragms at those locations where you're getting the salts and the water coming through have rust and section loss. When we say section loss, that means actual loss of the steel material. So the beam ends, having that loss is significant since the beams are supporting the deck and riding surface. The abutment bearings, which are where the beams are sitting that handle the movement, they have rust and they have missing anchor bolts. And as those rust up, they can be prevented and seize up from being able to move the way we want them to with the temperature changes. The northern fascia beam has significant rust and section loss in the lower web and the bottom flange. That's the one that carries the utility. And then the bridge railing and approach rail is substandard per the current, safety guidelines in terms of like the latest FHWA requirements. That's pretty common and widespread, obviously, with bridges that were not built within, the past like 10 years. And the deck drains themselves have some perforations and some leakage from all the water and the salts kind of going down through there. So next slide, these are ratings that, so when V-Trans goes out and inspects the bridges every 2 years, there's a nationwide federally mandated system for evaluating the primary load carrying elements, and those are the deck, the superstructure, the substructure, and then the channel itself. And those are rated 1 through 9. So here we try to put the number with also like the categorization associated with that number. So 6 is satisfactory, and 8 is very good. So those are the current like evaluations based on the latest inspection report from V-Trans of all the primary elements. So here we just have a typical underside of the deck. You can see that this is kind of like in the middle of the span. So we have some spot rusting, and we have some like evidence of water leakage and some concrete deficiencies that you can kind of see on the underside of the deck. But it's minimal peeling paint and not, a significant amount of rust that you're seeing in this photo. So then as you go to the where the beams sit at the abutment locations below the joints, you can see directly below the joints, they're getting more water, they're getting more salts, they're getting more debris. So you're seeing more rust, you're seeing more deterioration, you're seeing some more section loss to the steel. This is just a picture of one of the deck joints. Obviously this sees, a lot of water and salts, so we're seeing some perforations in the actual drains that carry the water down from the deck level. So then moving past the structural elements, kind of looking at the historic impacts. So the bridge itself isn't historic, but there are obviously resources in the project area that are considered historic or eligible for historic listing. So that's definitely something to, we took note of in our scoping study. And this also includes the Swanton Village Historic District, the Swanton Dam, and the mill adjacent to the northwest corner of the bridge, as well as the town-owned Marble Mill Park and the Goose Point Park. So these are all, important assets and entities that are, immediately adjacent to the bridge itself and to be considered when we're going through the alternatives and impacts they have. So from resource wildlife perspective, there's the northern long-eared bat potential habitat under the bridge. So based on the acoustic survey that V-Trans will do, there could be time of year restrictions if they find that it is a habitat. We'll have to be sensitive to that if they find that there is evidence of it being a long-eared bat habitat. We also have a proposed area of potential being sensitive to both pre-contact Native American and historic Euro-American sites. So these sites are kind of, immediately adjacent in the approaches. So depending on the alternative selected would, the impacts to that area, those areas would be dependent upon the recommended alternative and what the scope of the project actually is, how much it affects the approach areas. And then for utilities, we have municipal utilities that are, directly mounted to the bridge. We have a gas line, we have a water line. We know that, these utilities are important, and we need to coordinate with the town about maintaining, maintaining service and what the options are for those utilities in the event that they are impacted from the selected alternative. There are telephone manholes and sewer manholes in both approaches. We have public aerial lines that run parallel to the structure on the north side, which are a decent distance away from the bridge. They were just taken of note for some of the more impactful options of bridge replacement. They came into play for those options when we considered them. But those, as you'll see, we're not recommending to replace the bridge, so that impact doesn't really come into play too much. Again, public utilities, we also know that there is a 60-inch diameter pipe in the west approach running perpendicular to the bridge. We know there has been some notes of settlement kind of in that area immediately adjacent to the pipe. Next slide kind of just quick highlight of those utilities I just mentioned, as well as the right-of-way line. And then there's also, I've mentioned that there's a conduit on the bridge for the lighting, because the bridge currently has lighting. So that's just running along the bridge railing right now. So, going into the design considerations and the criteria, we're always following, Vermont state standards and the V-Trans Structures Design Manual, which are publications put out by V-Trans available on the website. Following the requirements for a two-lane rural principal arterial, considering the substandard criteria for that roadway classification, which is the approach and bridge shoulder widths, the bridge railing and approach guardrail per the latest FHWA requirements, making sure that we're meeting the structural capacity requirements for FHWA. And the past criteria, this is the stuff that's already meeting horizontal geometry, vertical geometry, so that's how the road kind of is laid out, both like in plan view and then vertically. So like profile would be like if you are coming up a steep hill or something and you have like bad sight lines or something, this is acceptable for that criteria for the roadway classification and the design speed. Similar with super elevation, that's more about if you have like a roadway with like a normal 2% crown versus something that maybe has something more extreme, it's meeting those requirements for the roadway, as well as the clear zone, which is the offset relative to the travelway, as well as the guardrail and everything protecting the approaches as you lead up to the structure. The bridge sees 10,800 vehicles per day with 1,200 vehicles per hour, and is about 15% trucks based on the latest count information that we had. So going through the alternatives considered, like I said, we came up with an entire report that kind of goes through this. So this is a pretty dense slide, but we're trying to just summarize all of the options that we considered in that report. So we always consider no action as an option. It's always on the table, but making note that there are maintenance items that need to be addressed within the next 10 years based on the condition that we're seeing. The first alternative that we went through was UHPC overlay. So that stands for ultra high performance concrete. So it's a type of concrete that is both stronger and denser than a regular concrete mix that you would see. And the idea of that is to kind of use that as your deck surface treatment, and to remove some of the, basically probably like 2 inches of your existing deck, 2 inches of your existing deck, and to come back with that more dense, higher quality, stronger material to protect your existing deck and beams below for a longer period of time. And we would also be doing miscellaneous repairs of areas that had the highest need in addition to that kind of UHPC deck overlay. It's the most limited structural scope that we have, but it hones in on the areas that we think need the most attention. And it would also provide an anticipated 20 to 35 year design life for that program hall rehab. The second alternative is a deck replacement, so with miscellaneous repairs. So just taking a step further, instead of doing like an overlay of the deck, we're going to replace the deck in its entirety. So the concrete deck slab that's currently on the bridge, we would keep the beams, but we'd pour an entirely new deck, which would then also come with new sidewalks and new railing. But we'd be keeping the footprint of the bridge the same as it is. We wouldn't be widening or anything. And then we would be doing targeted repairs, as I kind of mentioned, to areas of most need, including the steel beams, looking at the bearings, and some patching as needed on the substructure, the concrete piers in the water, any type of spalls, which are like loss of concrete material, taking care of those as part of the scope. And that would give you the same 20 to 35 year design life, mostly because of the concrete you're using for the deck is the more conventional concrete. We don't take UHPC and apply it in that same 8-inch slab over an entire bridge. That's not necessarily how it's used now and the best use of it. So you'd be using conventional concrete to replace your deck if you did a full deck replacement. Superstructure replacement is alternative 3. So that would be replacing the beams, the deck, and everything above that, including the bearings. So you would be basically leaving taking the concrete elements that are in the water and at the ends of the bridge and repairing those, and then putting new steel beams, new deck, new railing, new sidewalk on top of all of that. And it would be a similar footprint. We're not looking to like drastically widen or change the footprint of the bridge, as it pretty well ties into the approaches right now, and there's not really a need or a need to like make the approaches significantly wider either. It makes sense to kind of just match and tie into the corridor on either side as it is. And that's proposed to be 35-year design life with the new steel members for the coatings that they have and the anticipated maintenance and service life. And then last would be the full bridge replacement, which is the minimum 75-year design life, which would be a brand new bridge. Most likely not the 4 spans. It would probably be, looking at a 2-span option, but it would just be a new structure in its entirety. So to help visualize that, we do have some typical sections. I'm sure it's a little hard to read. They kind of have similar dimensions though, because as I said, they're not changing the footprint overly based on these different options. So like we would be pretty much maintaining, there's a curb to curb width of 30 feet. We're not proposing to change that. We're also proposing to provide similar sidewalk widths as we do now. So the two options shown here is no action, which is the existing structure. So that's what the bridge is right now. And then the one below it is just the UHPC overlay. So you can see it's maintaining the beams, nothing's changed in terms of the superstructure for the beams. And we're just going to be taking off that top layer of the existing concrete deck and coming back with the higher quality material on top for the overlay. And we'd be keeping the sidewalks and the railings as is. So the least impactful scope of work. So, you went the wrong way. Oh, we go too far. There should be one more slide of, the second slide of, that one. So then the other options that we talked about were the deck replacement and then a superstructure or full replacement. Since we're not showing the substructure, they'd be the same typical section, but it would just be for the deck replacement, keeping the beams and then a new deck on top. So we'd be providing the same 30-foot curb to curb, but we were slightly change what you're showing for the sidewalk just because we'd be using a new rail system, and that new rail system is a different width than the current rail system, but we would still have the 5-foot minimum sidewalk that's necessary for ADA compliance. And then you'd have a current or standard FHWA crash test railing. For the superstructure and the full replacement, we would just be replacing all the elements that are shown here: new beams, new deck, new sidewalk, new railing, and pretty much still matching with very slight widening, but still matching the footprint of the existing bridge pretty much. So when we completed the scoping study, we kind of came to the conclusion that there are really 2 viable alternatives for consideration, not necessarily just one. And that's one of the main reasons that we're hoping to get some feedback from this presentation. Is we think that the 2 most viable alternatives that we would recommend are alternative 1 and 3. So alternative 1 is your UHPC overlay with miscellaneous repairs. So what we do is we come up with what the cost of that would be from like a conceptual high level, and then we basically divide that cost by the anticipated service life of it to get an annualized cost. So what's the cost per year? So when we say lowest annualized cost, that's what we're saying. The cost per year of expected life out of it versus the total cost of it. It has the lowest annualized cost, as well as project delivery duration. That's how long it takes V-Trans in conjunction with stakeholders to get it to that advertisement to construction. It addresses the most apparent deficiencies with the structure, the ones that we're most concerned about right now. And it maintains the existing cross-section, which, as I said, ties into the approaches and makes sense for like the stretch of 78. For your alternative 3, the superstructure replacement, this had the second lowest annualized cost. It has just a slight increase to the bridge cross-section. We're able to get 5.5-foot sidewalks as opposed to the current, which is 5'2" about. And it also provides kind of a more comprehensive scope of repairs for all the elements that we kind of talked about before. So if we go to the next slide. So with those two recommended options, kind of keep those in mind. We'll go back to them when we summarize. We also have to think about how we're going to maintain traffic for those, recommended scopes from a structural perspective. And our options are always going to be to look at maintaining traffic on, the existing bridge. Or are we going to try to do an off-site detour with a bridge closure, have a temporary bridge for traffic during construction, or are we going to try to phase the construction? So, like a one-lane alternating condition while we do half at a time. So for the local detour, this one, it's a little zoomed out, but I think I can describe it too. It's obviously with the bridge carrying 78, it's obviously immediately adjacent to the intersections with Route 7. So the detour would use 78 to go to Route 7, to Beebe Road, to South River Road, and then back to Vermont Route 78. This is not the recommended truck detour. This is the expected detour of people who are in the area if they had to bypass the site. This is kind of what we would expect where they would go or how they would get around the work. Detour length is 5.5 miles in about 10 minutes drive time. So then for the regional detour, this would be the recommended truck detour. So this would use 78 to 7, and then use 38 and 36 to then get back to Route 78. So the detour route would be 20 miles and about 35 minutes of travel time. And this would be the one that, as it says here, that would be considered like the regional detour. So for the alternatives, we also looked at, a temp bridge and the potential of, where that would be and what it would look like. As we ran through this option, it didn't seem like it was necessarily the best approach, but with the location of the dam, we were kind of restricted to one side that we could place a temporary bridge. So that was the location that we looked at, and there was obviously noticeable impacts based on that location and needing to fit 2 lanes of a temporary bridge for such a significant crossing. Just a quick what a temp bridge would look like. I don't know if anyone's seen them on other projects, but it's kind of a mini truss lattice structure with steel, but this is just like a typical section of what those prefabricated temporary bridges kind of look like. So then we also looked at phase construction, which is, one lane at a time basically being taken for the construction zone, while one lane alternating is maintained. This obviously creates very tight work zones, and it also extends the construction duration. Since you have to do half at a time, you lose a little bit of efficiency in terms of having to have a little area of rework and not being able to fully mobilize within the limits that the contractor might like. So recommended scope. So these were the 2 alternatives that we flagged before as our recommendations from a structural perspective. And we're recommending for both of those alternatives to be looked at with the closure. So what we have here is kind of a snapshot of the recommended scope and associated schedule and timeline items. So for alternative 1, UHPC overlay with miscellaneous repairs, we're looking at a project development duration of 1 to 2 years. So that's the time it takes us with V-Transit stakeholders to get it out to advertisement. Construction duration, looking at, trying to accelerate that as much as possible since we're talking about, a closure. So 4 months is what we're looking at, with the design life of that overlay being 20 to 35 years, and we're matching the current typical section. For the alternative 3, the superstructure replacement, since it's a more significant, scope in general, we'd be looking at a 4-year project development process, and funding availability is, estimated at 2035. So kind of the difference here that we're highlighting is that, the funding availability for alternative 1 would be more immediate than the funding availability for alternative 3. There's more costs associated with it, more scope, and then also more impacts and a longer project development process anticipated. So I think we'll talk more about that, but that's kind of the reason why we're presenting 2 viable alternatives, is because they have 2 different, besides having 2 different approaches and costs and kind of scopes associated with them, they also have 2 different opportunities associated with the timeline and the funding. So with alternative 3, it would be an anticipated construction duration of 8 months with the closure using accelerated techniques, with the design life of 35 years, and also keeping to a very similar footprint of the existing bridge. So yeah, this is just, again, the picture of the typical sections that we kind of talked about before, just reiterating the 2 recommended options and the recommendation for the detour. So then we have a couple slides that just show, this is the bridge profile, which is the vertical surface, shown kind of as like a cross-section sliced through the middle of the bridge, parallel to the travelway, but we can go past that. I can't really read too much about it. And the slide and the layout is really zoomed out, and this isn't showing too much because we're planning to match the existing footprint. So you can go to the next, the slide.
Go one more.
Yeah, you can go one more, and then one more. We have so I know that this is really zoomed out. I think was this handed out as a,
Yes.
yeah, okay, so this is, don't try to read the slide. There's a piece of paper that was provided that gives a bigger font, hopefully, of the costs of all the recommended alternatives. So we went through a lot of all the alternatives, essentially, for the different means of traffic options, as well as the different structural scope options, as well as no action. So then you end up with, we have 11 alternatives that are priced out on that table. So it goes through all of the costs that we would be able to conceptualize at this point. It then takes, all the design criteria and tries to summarize it into this one table. But this is where we get that annualized cost, where we take the expected service life of, say 20 years, and then we have the total project cost. You divide out and you get your annualized cost. This table is also going to have the town or the village share shown in there, which I think we do a better job on the next slide for everyone to kind of see. But it's based upon that Act 153. So it's the project scope and then the traffic approach, right? So our 2 recommended alternatives are considered a rehab. So if it's a rehab, the village share is going to either be 2.5% or 5%, depending on the maintenance of traffic recommendation. So our recommendation right now is to close the bridge, so that would get you the 2.5%. So both of these alternatives that we're recommending, with the scope that we've kind of discussed, would be a 2.5% share from the village. And this is kind of a summary of those 2 costs, as well as some other items like we talked about before, which is construction duration, and the closure durations, and the anticipated service life and annualized cost at the bottom for both options, compared against each other, just kind of summarized on the screen. So the preliminary project schedule, it will depend on the alternative that's selected by the village. So we have here the total cost for the 2 different alternatives, the village percentage, which would be the 2.5 for both options. And then you can see that there's 2 different start dates. So for alternative 1, there's funding that would be available to have an anticipated start in 2027. For alternative 3, funding wouldn't be able to be available until an anticipated start in 2035. So then next steps, we want to obviously get some feedback from the village, talk through our recommendations, the 2 different options that we recommended. And then once we kind of come to a consensus, we would develop conceptual plans, which would be, the earliest set of plans that we could develop for comment, request a public information meeting on those plans, start looking at local agreements that might be necessary based on the impacts of the project. And if necessary, start the right-of-way process, but only if that's appropriate based on the scope of work that's selected to move forward. And then we'll go to questions and comments, and the website that's at the top of that slide has a link to V-Trans's website that has more information on the project for those that would like to look at it later and use the link later.
Well, thank you, Tiffany. We're going to open this up to public comment and set down a few guide rules here because we got a lot of participants. We're going to start off with the questions for the trustees first, and then we're going to move to the public. And please raise your hand and state your name for the public record and ask your questions. Trustees,
So,
any questions?
yeah, just a couple of quick ones. The concrete mix that will be used for the UHPC,
Yeah,
and you said it's a heavier, thicker concrete that's going to be used?
it's more dense.
It's
yeah.
more dense?
Yeah, it's more
Is that
dense.
going to affect the pillars that are already there? Are the pillars going to still be able to?
Yeah, we did a load rating, which is an analysis of the structure's load carrying capacity. Because right now actually there's multiple layers of asphalt on there. So we'd be removing all the asphalt, and then we'd be removing a portion of the concrete deck, and then coming back with just that UHPC overlay, and that would be what's exposed. It would be given like a treatment, like a diamond grind treatment, so that actually has traction, it's not slippery. But by eliminating the weight of the pavement, you balance out, and you won't have an increase in loading on the bridge to remain.
So it would look similar to what the Lamoille Bridge looks like?
Don't know if I can comment on what that looks like off the top of my head.
It would be a
but
bare deck, so it would just be a concrete deck. It would look just like concrete would be the driving surface.
Right, right, but that's what the
No,
Lamoille
it's
Bridge
not.
is, right?
Gone would be the delaminating asphalt.
Correct.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic.
And it's a structural overlay too. They get a good bond, so it actually can act as part of the structural capacity of the deck, so it can offset its in some bit of some capacity.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd be removing weight. Putting it on the back.
The bicycle access that you have in here, does that, I don't know that we have a bicycle access right now, it's only 2
So
feet.
we were going to recommend that the bike path bridge be the bike path facility for construction. We weren't going to try to accommodate bicyclists over the bridge during construction in like a allocated sense.
Right, okay, so that's what it pertains to. I thought you were looking to add another bicycle lane or increasing the width.
No, not with trying to immediately tie into the
Okay.
approaches and the width that we have there.
Okay. Whatever's decided, whichever one is decided upon, is there a warranty? Because I don't want the village to have to incur any repair costs 6 months after.
I've actually never gotten that question before.
Welcome to Swanton.
So the way it works is the contractor is responsible for the site until the project is accepted. So if there's any repairs that are required during that duration, they have to make them. But once the work has been completed and accepted, and it's completed in accordance with the specifications and contract documents, then there is no warranty from that point forward. But that means that there was on-site supervision verifying that the work occurred correctly. There's material testing that confirmed that the materials are what are specified in the contract documents. So you're ensuring through quality control and then quality assurance measures that you're actually getting the product you designed for. So you don't get a warranty, but you do get all the upfront effort to make sure you get a quality product before you do that kind of completion and acceptance memo to the contractor, letting them off the hook. So no warranty, but quality assurance measures,
Right.
Which are required for any federal aid project now going forward. And with a rehabilitation, there will be items that will need to be addressed that probably won't get addressed in this round of rehabilitation, right? There'll be other stuff that happens. So it wouldn't, I wouldn't expect it to be a brand new bridge,
Right.
but the items that are addressed themselves should be hassle-free for their intended service life.
That's all I have for questions.
No, not yet.
So, I mean, really, that's fantastic that there won't be asphalt on the deck anymore. And when it's smooth. And obviously, most of the repair and investment the community made last year is in repairs, and we're just gonna build upon that in this option. So that's good news as well.
With the UHPC alternative.
Right.
Right, not the superstructure replacement alternative. Yes, and I do think there's one thing to note too from the presentation and the costs, when you're considering both, that those are present value. We have experienced on average for the last 7 years about a 5% escalation in construction costs every single year. So in 10 years from now, in 2035, you would have to escalate those costs 5% every year. You'd add over another $1 million to those costs by the time you would go to construction. So that's just something to be considerate of, that those are present value costs based on current bid prices and our current information.
Okay.
Just because we come back, I'm the project manager that takes these from this phase forward after scoping, and have to tell towns why costs are higher than they were when we were here today. So I just like to let everybody know that.
So sooner would be the recommended age.
So the earliest this project, out of any of the alternatives, the earliest it could start would be 2028. Would these estimated numbers still be in effect, or would the increase that you're talking about be?
You'd be about a 10% increase based on current trends from today.
Okay, let's open up to the public for comments or questions. Steve?
Hello, my name is Steve Bourgeois. Swanton enjoys his own little gridlock every day now, about 3 o'clock until maybe 5:30 or so. So my question is more directed towards how we're going to handle traffic. You mentioned that we were looking at an average of 10,000 vehicles a day, and you came up with 1,206 vehicles per hour. Did you just divide the 10,000 by 24 hours, or is this heavier, more heavily weighted during maybe from 6 in the morning until, I don't know, 6 o'clock at night?
Yeah, so I am a structural engineer, so I apologize if I speak out of turn about traffic terms, but.
I can take it.
Yeah, the DHV is peak, it's based on peak. Right?
It's the peak
Yeah.
hour of traffic. Yeah.
1,200 an hour?
Is your heaviest hour, would be 1,200
And
now.
what would that period be from 6 in the morning until sometime in the late afternoon, or?
I'm not sure what is the heaviest hour that this road sees. It could be the evening commute traffic, it could be the morning commute traffic. But it just takes that heaviest hour, and that's what that value is.
It's the hour you wait the longest for all the traffic. So that is at 5 to 6 p.m. or 3 to 4 p.m. or 4 to 5 p.m. Whatever 1 hour period is the most densely trafficked.
So that's where the
that is.
1206 came in,
Correct.
okay. My concern is almost stacking. Of course, we had cars into Albert at certain times, but, okay, thank you.
Observation seems to be 7 to 9, 3 to 5. Seems to be the heaviest flow. Okay, anybody else have a question?
Just a question on alternative one. The other alternative, you had mentioned that railing would be replaced, but it will not be replaced in alternative one?
Correct. It would just, the scope of work would just be limited to the curb-to-curb limit of the travelway. So basically trying to get that protective layer over the limits of the travelway. We built in the assumption that we probably need to reconstruct the curbs just to make sure, because usually you get a lot of water trapped under there, so we'd probably need to take those out and replace those. But the sidewalk and the railing itself, if there was, an area of like specific, if there was a missing bolt or a, damaged rail or something like that, we could
Well,
address it.
that's
But
where I'm getting to, because
Okay.
for years, the rungs inside that railing have been falling out and falling out. Also, how sturdy is that rail? There has been a car that has gone through that railing about 35 years ago. So I really wonder, somebody give that a second look.
And I think that that's what, this is the point of this meeting, so I think that could be feedback that we get from the trustees regarding a scope alternative, right?
That's a great thing. It's, you know,
Just for the record, I was a trustee for 15 years, and I complained about that with the rungs falling out back then, so.
yeah. And and just to tie along, excuse me, with Brian's, is if we don't do, if nothing is done with the railing, are we going to be on the hook because it's not compliant?
Seems like that could be an add-on.
Yeah, exactly.
There definitely are some sections that have been damaged in the repair. Doesn't seem like or the materials used for the repair aren't quite up to snuff as the original, in my opinion, and some of those are rotting away, but it's just a few spots. So maybe we can address that.
You own the bridge, so you get to decide the scope.
Okay.
Lucky us.
Lucky us. Next, anyone? Earl?
If you do that alternative number one, you're not going to do anything underneath the bridge.
So if we have isolated areas of concern, we could have, debris removed. We could have like a beam end. We could do an isolated repair that would be kind of a unique unto itself setup instead of, like a larger setup by the contractor. So you'd still have the opportunity. Access would be more difficult for sure. But if we have a couple areas that are of, like structural concern, we can still include that in that option if we choose to.
Just one other comment too. Really, this is a very important regional road. It's going to be, no matter one way or alternative routes, they're going to cause a lot of harm for a lot of local people. And the other thing there, I don't think the village should be penalized because this isn't really a typical village town bridge because of its regional importance. And I know this has happened in a couple other places, I guess somewhere on Route 9. Hopefully that there'll be some changes made in how these things get financed so that we really can do what we need to do here, which represents quite a bit to the state of Vermont economy, that roadway.
Are we allowed a second question?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, okay. Swanton's recently enjoyed a real uptick in its retail downtown area. And these folks have taken some big chances. They've opened stores and everything you would expect. And we all know that there's not much money in retail, but there's a lot of hard work. If we start to lose our traffic flow coming in and out of the village, whether it's from other communities coming through that might stop, or our own local patrons, there's going to be some financial difficulties on our merchants. Do you know if there are any programs that are available that would provide some financial relief to the business owners, whether it be in the form of working capital, paying their rent, helping subsidize the loss of sales, and whatever, over that time period that this is going to be interrupting the traffic flow?
I'm not aware of any programs.
Okay, well, that's that. I didn't think that you wouldn't be aware of any because I'm not sure they're out there. But as part of this cost of the construction, could you try to work with other state agencies to see if they could seek funding, or you could incorporate some funds into the cost of this bridge that could be used for remediation of the merchants that are here that have taken these big chances and opened up stores and businesses?
Well, they wouldn't be doing that, we would be.
Well,
We'd be having,
if they're going to be putting in 95% of the money, they would have to, hopefully they would come up with some solution that would address this. I don't care where it comes from, but I think we owe it to our merchants to research some source of funding
no doubt about it.
to help them. I'd like to think it would come from the state. Your share would be a little higher because of that, but it wouldn't be a substantial amount, I wouldn't think.
I can answer that to some degree because we get that question in every single community.
I'm sorry.
I said I can answer that to some degree. We get that question in every community, right? Because we close roads frequently. And typically the only folks that get entitled to any compensation are folks that have a direct right-of-way impact where we have a permanent or temporary easement being taken, because every single person who commutes through this road has some sort of indirect cost that they could have a claim to, right? So it's something that you can't actually quantify, and it would never end if you tried to quantify it. So for the purposes of costs and reimbursement and eligibility, it's actual easements, temporary and permanent impacts. And we do that because we are also attached to federal funds. So we follow the Uniform Act, which is how we're allowed to distribute funds to property owners for project impact. So if we were to close access to one of those businesses, so for example, they had one driveway and we had to close it and we couldn't maintain access to that business, they would be entitled to compensation because the project is basically shutting their doors and there's no alternative access for their business. So typically the way that we resolve those impacts during design and construction is that we require a temporary access to be constructed when the normal access is being disrupted. So that way access is maintained, so that way we're not going through the financial loss compensation, which is a very complex calculation. It's very difficult to get to agreement with business owners because the valuation there it's not a straight one-for-one. So that's something that it comes up frequently. There have been communities which have done some public outreach as part of bridge closure projects in order to try and drum up support for local businesses during a closure, where they'll host special events downtown to draw people down during construction. Like I think Middlebury, during their 10-week closure of downtown 24/7 construction, they had actual parks, like parties in the park, to bring people down, and they had merchants who would track people that came through their door, and they did find that they did really well on those event nights. So they continued them for the duration of the project. So, but that was really a locally led effort by a local group of business owners and community members that were elected officials, and it was pretty successful. But it wasn't a sponsored project cost. And I think that model is being used in Bellows Falls right now for a project that we're planning. Route 9, you spoke about that, that's Wilmington. It's another project we're working on, Virgin's 22A. That is a major truck route. And there's a bridge project very similar to this with a dam that's being planned as well. So these are really difficult closures to talk about. They're not pain-free by any means. And I think those are important conversations to ask and advocate for. To my knowledge, we don't have any programs within B-Trans that we can administer. I think those business owners might be able to go to the SBA for capital or other things with that specific to their business and their, creditworthiness, etc.
One thing a business doesn't need is more loans.
Right.
They need funds. Well, this is what, 10 years out?
Depends on the alternative.
Yeah. So perhaps during that time, through legislation or some other means, we could come up with a pool of money that we could allocate based on some plan that we could develop.
Correct. Your legislators will be your best course of action for funding because they are the ones that give us our funding.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else have a question?
Yeah, if I may, you mentioned the Middlebury project was 24/7. Is that an option on this? I'd cut down the time the bridge would be closed.
I think it could be an option. You pay a premium for 24/7 construction.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that impact price. Night work is one of the most significant because obviously that's a huge burden for contractors to put their staff on night work or then to staff, basically twice the amount of staff for 2 shifts. It is possible, it really is, but it comes at a significant cost and also a cost to local residents who have to live through the night work. If there's, I don't know how many people live in the vicinity of the bridge, but
We're reducing it from 12 months to 4 months would be game changing for sure.
yeah. But that's something that can absolutely be discussed. 100%.
Lady in the back there.
So I understand there's other construction going on in other areas, but this is a major hub to a lot of major businesses, small and large businesses. So if I'm understanding it right, the two options that we're talking about now, one would happen in a couple of years, one would happen in about 10 years. One would close it for about 4 months, one would close it about 8 months.
No, it says that the closure duration would be 30 days for option 1 and 60 days for option B.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that the construction would take 8 months for
I
option
gotcha.
B and 4 months for option 1.
They're not closed.
Not closed, just construction.
Okay. So during that time, like if we went with the one that's just like 30 days or whatever, during that time period, like when it was just briefly closed, I own a business in town, and we lived through it, you know, but it's not just truck traffic that is a major issue, because for us, I mean, we do get a lot of Swanton people, but a lot of our business comes from New York, comes from Canada, comes from, you know, and when we were just closed for about that week and a half, it took us another month to kind of get those people to even come back, because they found other places to go, like to New York and that kind of thing. So construction is going to affect us big time. But my question is, how soon do you guys have to decide which way you're going to go? So if it's going to be like 2 years, are you guys going to decide in a year, so that actually gives us 3 years to plan out? Like, what's you guys' time frame for deciding which way you're going to go?
Well, that would have to be discussed, obviously. Earl?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, if you're bringing that up, that it's only going to be actually closed for 30 days, but is there a lot of one-lane traffic that's going to be involved here?
No, I'm sorry.
Closed.
You go ahead. It's closed.
What?
Closed.
It's closed.
Yeah, but I mean after that, when the rest of the construction's taking place, because you got 6 to 8 months of construction done.
4.
You know, 4, but only 30 days of the bridge shut down.
Yeah, I mean, like, there could be, you know, temporary one-lane type of requests from the contractor to stage and get prepped and all of that. And we have the ability within the special provisions to try to restrict that and to try to limit the contractor and what they want to do, how long and when. But yeah, I would imagine that there would be requests from the contractor to do single lane for periods of time to help prep.
We typically allow 2 weeks before a closure and 2 weeks after a closure for them to do 1 lane of construction. So I think that would be really problematic here with the design hourly volume in excess of 1,000 cars. So that would get substantial queuing of traffic for those peak periods. So that's something that through the design, we would want to work with the community to narrow that down. You know, maybe it's a 40-day closure, but no 1-lane closures on either end, right? There's trade-offs. You have to have enough time to do all of the work. Also, maybe it's no shoulders, and we do 2 narrow lanes, and maybe we can kind of phase 2 lanes of traffic for the kind of cleanup work that they're doing on the curbs and stuff. So there might be some things that we can consider during the design piece once we have it laid out and we know what alternative we're pursuing. But just conceptually, 30 days is the closure duration. That could increase a little bit if we wanted to restrict the 1 lane activities before and after construction. That could also get shorter if we wanted to allow the 1 lane activities to go for longer durations on either end of the closure. So those are all parts of the puzzle that we get to direct as we develop this contract and put it up to bid. We get to put, you know, the requirements that we want out to bid for contractors, but we also have to be realistic with our expectations, because if we're unrealistic, you either get really high pricing or you get no bidders. Or you get bidders who see that there's a 30-day closure, but they know it's 40 days worth of work, and then we've got a $10,000 per day disincentive or fine for going over that 30-day, and they just put it in their bid price knowing they can't make it, and they have no intention of meeting the 30 days. So then you pay twice. You suffer the duration and the financial cost. So it's important to be practical and pragmatic when you're setting up those contracts. And I do think for your schedule, I had a quick call with our budget team before this. The funds for the UHPC alternative are available in state fiscal year 28 and 29. So the fastest we could go would be construction of 2027, but I think we would prefer 2028 from a design perspective to make sure we have adequate time to address all of these concerns, and that would be another year for planning purposes. That would probably be a more credible and realistic schedule.
So what we found last year, and to remind everybody, the repair on the bridge with the total closure was 15 days. It's originally going to be...
Going to be 20, we ended 5 days early.
Right. So it'd be twice as long, obviously. We've also have learned that one-lane traffic on the bridge causes a horrendous slowdown in the community, aggravation, and impact to businesses downtown as well. People can't get down. Any more questions from the community? Darcy?
I really just want to make a note, and it's not a question, I'm going to leave the bridge stuff to professionals, but when you do make the decision to close, give the businesses as much, like a year more notice so we can budget. Don't order as much inventory, plan it out a little bit more well in advance, and advertise the hell out of our downtown. Down a barricade at the end of First Street, because that prevented so many people from coming to the businesses during the last closure, and that was only 2 weeks. No, as Angela said, it was very impactful. The block party was great at the end, definitely helped make up a little bit of the missing piece, but anything more we can do. Put signs along First Street, put something along the detour. Our businesses are open, our downtown's open. Stop by the restaurants, come shop, come hang out in the park, something, anything.
That barricade was a really, really big deterrent. The people that I did get coming to the shop and said, oh, we decided to take our chance and come through. We thought the downtown was closed. No. So they got very, very seeing that there. That was a huge, huge hit. That was probably just about as bad as a hit as the bridge being closed, was having that blockade right there. I get the process of it is to deter the trucks, but it deterred people in general. They just went down Route 7 because they thought the whole downtown was closed. So just planning ahead would be like, and she is right. If you can give businesses, that's why I asked if you guys knew when you were actually going to decide which way to go.
Right.
Because, if you're talking 2-3 years away, you don't know what life happens. We could be closed, or she could be closed in 3 years, or we could be here for 20 years. You don't know what happens in life. But we need to plan almost a year or two in advance if there's going to be that much closure, what we're going to do as businesses, because we do need a lot. I feel like we need a lot more support in village and town than what we get right now, financially, because with the sidewalk issue is going to be an issue as well, because that's going to be another construction that we've got that's going to be coming that we have to try to mingle through as businesses. And then in a year or two, then it's going to be the bridge again. So as far as businesses go, right in the downtown, we're almost going to have construction almost every year or every year and a half. That's going to affect us huge.
Yep.
And I personally feel that I grew up, even though I grew up in Highgate, I grew up in Swanton, and I always came to Swanton. But I feel like before all these businesses and restaurants came in, Swanton was kind of on a lull. Now it's starting to come back around, which is wonderful, and it looks wonderful, and so many people are coming from other towns, and it's filling its way back. And then now you're going to have a construction of sidewalks and construction on the bridge, and now it's like I'm hoping it doesn't deter a lot of businesses from still coming and people still coming, because I know personally if I were somebody to see a big sidewalk project coming in, I would probably avoid going into those businesses. And then all of a sudden a year later you're going to do the bridge. It's going to be rough, and it's not even just the small businesses. I mean, it's going to be rough even on the big ones trying to come through that need their supplies.
Businesses are going to be forced to make a decision if they're going to stay open.
Yeah, that's good.
And here's something to think about too. 10,800 vehicles come across that bridge. 12 to 15% are trucks. If you were to do the math at 10,800, how many people in them vehicles? Could be one, could be two, could be three, could be a couple tour buses coming into town. They're only doing 10,800 vehicles, but how many shoppers are in each one of those cars?
Or people that want to do the restaurants, or people that just want to go to the bakery. You know, you could have a busload of 20 people coming in over that bridge. That's hitting up the bakery. I mean,
It's gonna negatively, big time. And we have to be forced to make that decision if we're gonna keep our doors open.
So
Financially, it'll hurt us.
let me ask the question, just, so the way they're looking at it right now, if we went with option one, it'd be approximately 4 months construction with approximately 30-day closure. If we did not do a closure, we'd be looking at 12 months construction. Would that affect you more or less than having a 30-day closure?
It would affect you guys more.
it's really hard to tell because you're probably right, it would probably affect us more. But at the same time, at least you would get people coming through. I mean, because it was like a ghost town. All I'm saying is if you, whichever route you go, she's right, do not block that off. That was huge. It was like a ghost town. And if it's going to be a ghost town for, you say 30 days, logically it's going to be more like 2 months probably because, you know, close down for 30 days and then, you know, one side, each side, whatever.
You're cutting the artery off.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that's why I was asking, is I'm not a business owner down there, so I'm trying to understand to make the best possible decision
Just
for
don't
the
do it in
community.
December.
What's that?
Just don't do it in December.
I don't think they'd let us.
From what I've seen in Winooski traveling through there, having the one lane, having traffic going through while construction is happening, it's very confusing. You don't know how to get to, you know, the Vietnamese restaurant. You don't know what places are open, what places are not. I feel too that as a safety issue for the people that are working on the bridge, that a closure is probably the best, and not just, and for the taxpayers who have to foot this bill, a closure is the best option. Trying to get all of our ducks in a row as to what method we're going to go, the option 1 or 3. I think we need to discuss that, but I think that preparing for a closure, at least a 30-day, if not 40-day closure, is what we're looking at. And we have to do it because we have to fix this bridge. It's not like we want to close down the artery and not allow people to come through. But in the meantime, that also gives us, while you're making your plans, promote Swanton an opportunity to plan what we're going to do to support you guys while that's closed. Would you agree, Earl?
Yes, I'd like to see an alternative, but I don't believe there's enough money in the state to do it properly. I mean, they should put a temporary bridge up and they should replace that bridge. Really, that's the best thing, not for Swan, but for Vermont. But I don't see that happening at the present time. So we gotta have that structure. So it's gotta be repaired. So we're gonna have to find a way that we can support our businesses so they can get through this. And I believe we can. I'm certainly hoping that's gonna, you know, well, we're gonna have to do a lot of work, but it's possible. And the other thing I wanna say, if you're gonna shut that bridge down, we gotta do a little bit better job on the Beebe Road detour, especially for trucks that end up getting there because they're going to Canada or some other reason. And that left-hand turn onto Route 7 was a disaster. Okay, the whole thing was a disaster. You know, they were out in the road, they were off the road, so there's gotta be some changes made there. And I think with some safety issues along South River Street need to be addressed too, especially in Esker. And maybe some education for drivers. And if you're gonna, even if we had to detour the truck traffic, let the car traffic go in the Swan as long as much as possible. Even if it was only one way, coming from, you know, heading east. That would be one way to help our businesses a little bit too.
And just one other thought along with that. Is it possible to route the majority of the truck traffic through the islands? I know when the island shut down their bridge for 2 years, Swanton took the brunt of these trucks coming through. I think it's a nice trade-off.
It's certainly possible. I think it really depends on their destination, right? If they're
Right, yeah, I mean,
St. Albans, they're not gonna,
if they're, yeah.
they just won't go that way.
Right, exactly. But if they're trying to get to 89,
Correct.
right down to.
And I think you make a great point about maybe considering, instead of alternating one-lane traffic, there is a possibility of just doing a single one-lane directional traffic, and we could consider that in the design phase, which is we'll build this bridge in phases, but you're only going to maintain eastbound traffic or westbound traffic, whichever you decide, and then you detour the other direction. So that might be a viable option, which might limit your queuing, because now you're not stopping traffic, waiting for it to clear, and then letting it go again and getting those long lag times with nobody crossing.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be a viable alternative, or maybe that's considered for the non-closure duration, or maybe that is the preferred maintenance of traffic. I think, Montpelier is doing that with State Street right now with their sewer reconstruction. It's closed to one day. There's a detour for one direction, but it's open in the other. So that's actually a really good idea, and something that could certainly be evaluated during design. That would impact the funding share. That would go to the 5% instead of 2.5%.
Well, you guys keep talking about that funding share.
Yes.
We're going to try to get our legislators straighten out this issue, okay? Because the village really shouldn't be responsible for this.
Right.
At some point, somewhere, somebody in some village trustee said, yeah, we'll take that bridge. And now that's a problem.
That was before us, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all the recommendations that we put out tonight, is there a way to have you folks come back and tweak a second presentation?
If you have a guidance on what way you want us to tweak
We
it,
gotta tell them.
We gotta just make a decision and then they
Yeah, I don't think we can, I can't make a decision tonight.
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
So if we went 3B, clearly it's the most effective and far-reaching, cost-efficient scenario. We get railing, we get sidewalks. It's 2035. From an engineering point of view, what are our maintenance and repair costs projected from now for the next 10 years until we get to that project?
I think it's probably bearings, beam ends possibly.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke to the condition of the railing, scuppers, which are the drains, those need to be addressed, and you'd probably have continual deck patching and obviously the asphalt that you need to be addressing as well. 10 years, you'd probably be getting to the end of your new joints that you don't.
None of that sounds good, by the way. It all sounds expensive.
Yeah, I mean, the cost of maintaining a bridge is, ongoing, but those would probably be the items that come to mind in terms of what you need to address leading up to that.
And to clarify for the trustees, 100% of maintenance costs are on us. Okay.
And I think, if you knew you were going to replace an entire superstructure, I would put my maintenance money into maintaining the substructures so that they didn't deteriorate, and then just maintain rideability of your bridge, because everything else will be disposed of at 10 years. So I wouldn't invest a lot of money in those components.
But if we were to go 1B and calendar year 2028, we would have to put very little money maintenance into our bridge.
Just your riding surface.
Yep.
Gone would be the bumpy. That's good information, Earl. I'd have to disagree with you about the bypass being a failure. The feedback I got from the greater Amana community is people love not being stuck in traffic jams. And the fact that they were able to keep moving caused a lot less stress on the community overall. Yeah, there are a few lessons learned. Definitely the left turn needs to be a little wider there, but,
We did have 20,000 cars utilize it with one minor fender bender during the entire time.
And it had the least impact overall on merchants, the community. everyone else and saved a lot of money and aggravation. Anyone else have a question?
When do you anticipate making a decision?
Well,
That was my question too. Didn't get an answer.
Keep asking.
The question was, when
do we want to decide?
when do we
what our
anticipate
options
making
would
our
be?
decision?
Well, I
When do
know,
we make the decision?
I know which way I want to go.
I mean, are we looking like at a month, or are we looking at 6 months? I guess
Which
so.
one do you want to do?
So the sooner we know, the sooner we can plan ahead of what we're going to do.
I'm not in favor of shutting the bridge down at all. I mean, we've been 25 years trying to get you guys going downtown. And to shut it down for 60 days or even 30 days is going to do you guys in. So if we have a new bridge, or even a better bridge, and there's nobody downtown to drive through, what the hell good is the bridge?
I feel
I
like
think
you guys may be back at square.
Earl had a good idea about
I like that.
alternative flow through. Put the trucks traffic down my street. I don't care. They don't bother me, but I'm not in favor of shutting the bridge down.
Yeah, we let the eastbound traffic come in up the bridge, and we detour the westbound traffic so that it doesn't go across the bridge. So that would be the alternative to be, it's pricier for the taxpayers, but in the end, it helps the small businesses downtown.
Yeah,
So I think the trade-off is,
it's pricier for the taxpayers, but if we don't have the taxpayers downtown to help us out, what good is it gonna do?
like I just said, I think it's better for the business. Listen.
I would disagree with that.
Well, then, we can still try to get some extra money to come back to the village, and I know the town would be more than glad to support you on this because, it's an important roadway for this region, it's an important roadway for Swanton. And, it's not really fair that one little municipality has to bear that additional cost for the entire region.
I get you and Steve to say you'll pay for half right now.
Let's not go any further.
No, I'm saying the money should be coming from the state because they're going to benefit the most from that roadway.
Where the money comes, hopefully we'll have a LOT conversation and worry about that.
Yeah. Well, we need to get, Representative Walker.
He's right here.
Hopefully he is here.
Watch what
I
you
was going to
say.
ask for his input.
He's quietly sitting over there in the corner.
I was going to ask for his input.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, Matt, what's up?
Yes, sir.
You were going to, but you decided to skip it. Yes, I am Representative Matt Walker, and I appreciate listening to all the piece. And Earl, I want to tell you, right here in my notes, I said, I wonder why we didn't do, or why we didn't consider, I don't know how you're going to be able to do the way, the west and the east, but if you're coming from the west and going east and sending them around BB Road and coming and headed west because of the right hand, but otherwise how you crisscross them before or after would be awfully hard, but it does seem like a flow that was on one of my notes of many things there. And the other thing that I had about, you mentioned about something about bridges when you were talking about the construction in the last, if bridges hadn't been worked on in the last 10 years, they show a lot of this wear or that wear, and that ultra or high-performing concrete is only like a 20-year-old technology. So I kind of look at sometimes what's the value of an increased maintenance of some sort and putting off major work as long as possible, especially if truck traffic's going to drop with the finishing of Auto Route 35. Supposedly the truck traffic, less weight vehicles, will the bridge last longer? Is there anything the maintenance can be done locally in combination with our village and town that would prolong the life of it along with the reduced amount of truck traffic that we're hoping for, hopefully the continued residential? Because the cost of the money is important further down the road, but also putting it off, we just went through this, it feels like going through it again would be, pretty rough. So part of me wants to say, how can we put it off without, where's the balance of the money there? Because the bridge technology is improving dramatically, and the contractors that we're dealing with are, in Vermont, are gaining an amazing amount of expertise because they're, if you'll notice, they're working very hard from 91 all the way up in 89. Every single year they're doing major bridge construction. That's one of the few for certain planned out AOT projects that every year, as if you go back to the years that the interstate were constructed, they're rebuilding all the interstate bridges as they work their way north. Technology in bridge construction is coming along, or is changing significantly. So if it was 10 years later, what you just said about bridges from 10 years ago being built differently, this concrete's less than 20 years old as far as the first one was done, and Sherbrooke was the first time it was ever used in all of North America, so it's only 20 years ago. And if we could put it off 10 more years and with some kind of increased maintenance, that might offset the cost. We also have made a recent change in this year's legislation that's going to make sure that the share of town highway money and bridge money is going to increase with inflation or increased revenue. So if the agency revenue goes up or inflation goes up, the limited amount of money the state does give to town highways and bridges will go up, but at least have to be reviewed. It won't go back to a statutory minimum. Lastly, to keep it on that, this idea that a regional bridge, through whether it be reviewed by planning commissions or et cetera, the Route 9 bridge in Brattleboro drove some major conversation, and it happens to be the rep that represents that area is also on the transportation committee, and they feel that that's a major truck connection going through their village that they've had to pay way more than the share of the value they get out of it. And we have a similar situation here with the traffic and commerce that's trying to get through the town versus necessarily into the town. If it were just to get in and out of town for commuters, that would be a town village bridge expense. But this massive amount of commerce that's just trying to get through to the interstate is something that we bear an extra portion to. The Senate Chair of Transportation has a similar issue in Route 15 in his county with the amount of traffic that uses local bridges to cut off a significant part of the piece. So part of me says you're also going to have significant elections between now and then. The current governor is not going to stay for 10 more years. Entire administrative change and view on how transportation should be done in the state is likely to change. My thoughts are, the ability to influence are, some level of maintenance and activity that pushes it off might be better, believe it or not, for the town and village than doing it sooner. But I don't know that. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just learning as I go, but we are getting substantially better at bridge construction, substantially better materials every day. It might be, and I just struggle with the idea of having to go through it again so soon. Those are my thoughts. Not an answer to what you're looking for.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Those are my
Different
notes
twist.
and my thoughts.
Different twist. I have no more questions.
Any more questions from the public? Well, I guess we should adjourn the public hearing on Bridge 6.
Need a motion? I'll move we adjourn the public hearing on Bridge 6 at 7:24.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second to adjourn the public meeting for the B6 Bridge. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Number 6, we're calling the regular board meeting to order, folks.
It's just a done deal.
Folks.
Oops, sorry.
Yep. Agenda review.
Nothing to
Anybody to add? Okay. Number 8, approve and accept minutes from Monday, June 23rd, 2025, meeting as presented.
We'll move we approve and accept the minutes from Monday, June 23rd, 2025 as presented.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second to accept the minutes from Monday, June 23rd, 2025. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, motion carried. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Number 9, approve and accept village warrants through Thursday, July 10th, 2025.
I'll move that we approve and accept the village warrants through Thursday, July 10th, 2025.
And I will second that motion.
All right, we have a first and a second to accept the village warrants through Thursday, July 10th, 2025. Any further discussion?
I just have one question. Is Lynn with us?
She's on the phone, yeah?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Lynn.
On warrant 71, payment 34608. It's the Wilmington Trust, M&T Wilmington Trust. What's that for?
That is bond payments on the sewer,
Project.
on the water bonds.
Okay, water. All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, any further discussion?
No.
Okay, we have all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Number 10, Swanton Village Public Works Department update with Dean Ryan.
Dean's
Welcome,
been
Dean.
a busy guy.
You guys have been busy.
Okay, you got your own nameplate. You're excited? How you doing? Good. Doing good?
Yeah.
All right, he loves this part.
Yeah.
We have a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Second.
I didn't bump you, did I?
No, you're good.
Drum roll.
If you don't want to cream your neck, you can go down.
Oh, yeah.
Let him say it, or you can look on this one.
That's what I like.
There you go.
If I go to my email, can I go from share to my email?
I think you got to go to your email and
And
pull
then
up
I'll
the
do it that way.
PowerPoint. Yep.
Because I can't connect to P Drive.
Your PowerPoint's only a pointer system anyway, so while it's loading, if it's okay with the trustees, he can start talking about all the cool stuff he's got going on, right?
Absolutely. Sure.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So on the,
They're almost good.
It blipped.
Yeah, it was there for a second.
Good one. One sec. Right there.
There we go.
perfect. So on the first page, we purchased street sweeper this year. It was a little rough starting off. We had some connection issues on the inside of the cab. We got it taken care of. It's a 3-cylinder diesel. It's got 3 adjustable rotating brushes in the front. The 2 front brushes, they move side to side, they tilt. The front brush, it'll go on the sidewalk, it'll come through the side, it'll grab some of the stuff on the sidewalk, driveway aprons, and it's really good at grabbing weeds too. And so it's got a 7-yard dump body on it, holds 250 gallons of water on there. It's got front camera, rear camera in it, a lot of mirrors to go through and to do the whole village with one person with this vehicle about 120 hours versus the other one where it took us most of summer to go through and try to hit them. And this gives us time to go through and try to get other projects done within the village. We're still learning it. There's a lot to learn on this. There's a lot of action going on in the truck. The nice thing is it can cover a lot of territory pretty quick. We don't have to, I got one small spraying to do this year, and by having this, it takes a lot of the weeds out. So it's nice to go through the village and look and say, oh, you know, the bridge looks pretty clean. I got some stone. I'll hop in it, go through, get it cleaned up. It don't take long. Usually, got to fill up twice a day with the water, and you can dump once, depending on how much material. So otherwise than that, it's a good investment. So Dewey Street, we had a water leak on Dewey Street this year. We had a water leak on Gallup Court. Actually, we had 2 leaks on Gallup Court. We had a mainline valve that blew up on us, and it was a mess. So we had to shut the industrial park down to take care of it. And if you see that picture down on the bottom, that was a section that we had to cut out on Gallup Court. And we had to replace 25 feet of that line. There's a lot more of that on Dewey Street and Gallup Court. It's a 2-inch galvanized. And it takes time to go through and replace water lines. The one on the left was another, that was from Dewey Street. We had to go through and we had to fix that one. Over on North Street, we had another valve that we had to replace. So it takes time to go through and, actually, excuse me, the one on North Street we're working on. Hopefully this week or next week we can have that one fixed. So we got a lot of projects this year. Down on Brown Avenue, We had a issue with some storm water, usually in the springtime, winter, it would freeze. A couple of the residents had some issues with it. Met with some engineers to see what was the best way to go. And so we ended up putting in a couple of storm basins in there, which goes into the storm, don't go into the sewer. We were able to get rid of the ditches, and we put in 350 feet of pipe down through there. And I try to look forward into the rain that we get, because we get a lot of substantial amount of rain. And we haven't had any issues with that. And I think that area in the next 15 years or 20 years shouldn't have any issues handling the amount of water that's going to get dropped down. So a lot of the residents are happy. Now hopefully it should stop breaking up the road, you know, continue to dry out. So that was a nice little project that was done. So in Village Green, we put in 3 new meter pits in there. And we tried these meter pits because Village is switching over, and there's a lot of camps down in the Quam and some others that have some meter pits in them. And a lot of them are really old, or they're homemade. These meter pits were put in. They did not freeze. The meters are still in them. So these are going to be the meter pits that we're going to be installing throughout the village within the next year or two to switch over. Sidewalks. Oh boy, that's a big issue. Every place has sidewalks, and every place needs to have sidewalks fixed. $15,000 for sidewalks is what the village has. $15,000. And it hasn't been changed in over 35 years. It's been the same amount. And we always think about taxes and what it costs people, and there is no place that has perfect sidewalks. 15,000 will get you roughly about 320 to maybe 350 feet. That's not even a block of sidewalks. This all takes into consideration curbing. Curbing is a different animal. Takes a lot more material. Driveways. You got to put more concrete in for the driveways. Heidi got a grant for Grand Avenue, and we're looking to put in 1,250 feet of sidewalk this year with Public Works. That's a lot for us. We usually do about 320, 350. We'll be working on this till snow flies. We got 376 feet done right now. We're gonna stop at St. Marie's. Then we'll turn around and we're gonna start on York Street, and hopefully we'll make it to Furman this year. That'll be 1,250 feet of 5-foot sidewalk down through there. Working on another grant to go further. And I do know that there is other sidewalks out there, but this sidewalk, what we're doing now, would take us a little over 3 years to do, to go that far. We try to do sections here and there. It's really hard because there's a lot of bad spots, and some of the sidewalks are in the town. So we don't do town sidewalks. We just do our village, you know. But otherwise than that, I understand that there is other sidewalks that need to get fixed, but we try to look for the ones that are really bad. And I do know that there is others that are bad, and everybody else knows too. Street maintenance. So every year we try to do potholes. Boy, potholes aren't very easy. The water gets in there, it breaks them apart. You've got the truck traffic that comes through, construction. We try to do our best to go through and fix them. We got a couple more potholes that we have to go out and we have to fix. Line painting, street painting. We pretty much do everything here. We do all of our own painting. It takes time. We send 2 people out. They'll be starting probably next week on street painting. It takes a month and a half with 2 people, depending on the weather, to get everything painted up, and we try to get it done before school. Crosswalks, stop bars, We go through about 120 gallons of white paint a year, maybe 5 gallons of blue, and probably 5 to 10 gallons of yellow. And I always take a look at the stencils. The state came through and they got those bike people on there. Those stencils were almost $1,500 a piece. So I went down with a piece of plastic and some black magic marker and I taped it up and I bought a stencil for $400 and I cut them out and I did them myself. So it saved the taxpayers a lot of money and we didn't have to pay a lot for those stencils.
That's awesome.
You know, so cleaning the streets, we're not St. Albans. Their streets always look nice, but we're trying to make our streets look nicer to try to get people to come through so you don't see all the junk. Sewer, we've gone through and cleaned out some sewer drains, some main lines this year, a couple storm drains. We worked on trying to clean our main line valves. We try to put plugs in them so the dirt and material don't get into them. Street maintenance is ongoing. It never stops. It's really hard to keep up with. You know, with 6 people, there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of projects. Bill and Heidi and everybody else keeps us pretty busy, so.
What an opportunity.
Yep. Canoe and kayak slab. We helped out with it. We dug out the old slab. They came in, they made a form. We helped pour some concrete. They wanted it rough. They had to leave, so we have to go back. We have to finish the side of it. We don't have a lot longer left over there. A lot of people come through and they use it for kayaking. The fire department, they'll use it if they have an issue in the river somewheres on that top end. So not really going to touch too much on it because we don't really have a lot to do with it.
It's gonna be nice.
Upcoming projects. Got a grant for a dry hydrant. That's scheduled for next to John's Bridge, and that's scheduled for August 12th. Been working on this, for about 1.5 years, Heidi?
Probably a year.
Probably a year then. It's gonna be quite the project, gonna be a lot of people there. We got a Class 2 paving grant. That's gonna be roughly August 7th, August 8th, depending on the weather. That's for Lake Street and Linda Avenue up to the village town line. Linda Avenue, a couple years ago, the road would separate in the center and it would lift anywhere between 2 to 5 inches. A couple years ago, we dug out probably about 100 feet, put a good base in it, put a small layer of asphalt over the top, and it hasn't moved, so we're pretty happy with it. So Linda Avenue, I got very little bit of work on it. Lake Street, got some structures that we have to do down there. You will see a picture in the bottom left-hand corner. Just, again, you know, a lot of truck traffic going down through there. The road moves. We got some shouldering to do, and that'll be, and again, that's another grant, so that'll be nice. We got a main line valve for wastewater that we have to do. We went to close down and the valve broke. It's not leaking or anything. So got the valves on the 16-inch main ready in case we have to shut those down. But we're gonna pre-dig that this week, get the valve ordered, go across the road to the main, look for a corporation. We'll shut it down. If there is one, then we'll get that fixed, and that'll be another valve. Then we have our regular hydrant flushing in the fall that we usually do. Upcoming projects, painting streets. We have another grant for a small stormwater outfall for stabilization. That one will probably take maybe 2 days at the max. Every year we try to do a stormwater project, and there's a lot of them out there, and they're actually pretty fun projects. Another upcoming project we got leak detection, got another grant. Pretty sure they're coming in August for that. And then we'll get back to doing sidewalks in between. Hopefully we get that finished up before snowfall. Then get back to storm drains. We try to clean a certain amount of storm drains every year. And get back to cleaning some more mainline valves. And by then, usually get ready for winter because snow will start coming. And that's what I got going on so far, and that's not including all the other little small things that come up.
That's it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. That's what I was wondering. Dewey Street's not in there. Do you want to do the water line this year? I'm just picking on you.
Yeah.
I need some more mulch in one of the parks.
Yeah. You guys got any questions?
Dean, how wide did they make that ramp down at the river? You know how?
It was the same exact width as the last one that's in there, so that one is 8 feet. That's 8 feet. And the one we butted up next to it because they're not allowed to touch the water. And that one's 8 feet also. And it's 30 feet in length.
Where is that?
Right across the VFW.
Just above the dam there.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was in Marshall.
Yeah, it's the Northern Canoe Access Trail right there.
Yep.
It's kind of grown in and just a little path. Well, fantastic team.
Thanks,
Yes,
Steve.
thank you very
Projects
much.
look great. They're going to be
Hardworking group.
fantastic.
We tried.
How's your new kid working
I
out?
was going to say, did you introduce Jaden?
No, I didn't.
Would you like the opportunity to do that?
We hired an individual out of high school, Jaden Fletcher. Been with us now just a little over 2 weeks. Doing a good job, and I think he's got a good future ahead of him.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yep.
I know
Yep.
that.
Seems like a good kid.
Yeah.
He is.
Good worker.
Fantastic work on the sidewalk. It's really looking sharp over there.
Thank you.
I know that the whole stretch was pretty rough through there.
Yeah,
Especially the other way back
it's
down
bad.
through the dip.
Yep. It was bad. There's a lot of bad spots, but in time, we'll get there.
One step at a time.
Yep.
Well, we'll get there faster doing 1,200 feet a year.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot for us.
Good news on the street sweeper. Unfortunately, that was a little bit of a
Yeah. The dealer was really good. The guy would come here, he worked on it, spent a lot of time on it, and yeah, it was discouraging. It really was. But now it's really nice. You take out, you take off, and you know, I can cover Grand Avenue, I can cover First Street, I can hit across the bridge, I can go down Canada Street, I can go around the park, clean up downtown, and get that all done in maybe 5 hours.
inside, climate protected,
You know.
no dust in your face.
No, it's dusty.
Environmental stuff. Inside the cabin?
Yeah, it does get dusty.
It does get dusty?
Yeah, we had to tint the windows to keep the sun down a little bit because it gets hot in there.
Okay.
Yeah. If you ever want to go for a ride, let me
Yeah,
know.
I actually do.
He's not wrong. I told him the air conditioner was broken, and he said it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot going on. Don't get nervous.
Oh, well, it looks like a nice piece of equipment. doesn't
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And the fact that you can carry the water and wash clean.
Oh, yeah. It's all adjustable. Yeah, it's really nice.
And the thing just backs up, lifts up, and dumps out.
Yes, it dumps just like a regular dump body. Yep.
Well, cool. Thanks for the update.
thank you, sir.
Fantastic work and
Much appreciated.
new guy.
Yep.
Always good.
Yep.
Young guy, too.
Yep. You're free to go. All right.
Yeah. Off the hook.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks a lot. Dean.
Thanks, Dean.
You guys have a good night.
You too, Dean.
Number 11, village manager update. Bill, you're on deck.
I'm going to be fairly brief. So the third iteration of our downtown grants, if you recall, right, we got $600,000 grant for Canada Street. So we need a trustee to volunteer to be on the At the Ready Engineer Assessment Group. I was trustee Kelleher last time. Sounds like you'd be interested again this time?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. We don't need a motion, I just need a volunteer to do that because we have to start that process fairly soon. Thank you.
On call.
She's been through it.
I have.
You'll notice that the 11 trees have been removed that were dead, dying, and dangerous in the village green. Everything's been replaced with topsoil and straw. So for the car show, literally, I would just park them wherever, including on there. Dean knows that he might have to come back and just tidy up a little bit. I don't know how much grass you'll have between now and then, but it's done and it looks good.
The biggest concern was the blims falling if the wind picked up, so no more concern.
It looks nice.
Yep,
It does.
very
It's a
nice.
lot.
Did a nice job
And then we'll
cleaning up.
have to discuss where to plant new trees.
That's right, that's the next step. The Lower Swanton Dam, the Overlook RFP went out. The bids are due on July 17th. We had an on-site that was well attended by multiple builders, so we'll see what we get back and what that looks like. The Northern Forest Canoe Trail, Dean talked about it a little bit. They did the campsite over on behind the tennis courts, as well as the canoe access. So they're pretty much done. They're gone at this point. We still have to order signage, and we got to be pretty clear. And Diane, it's a question. I don't know if we have to update ordinances. Our ordinances say no camping overnight. There's going to be the one exception, so we have to have a designated sign that they'll pay for that says camping for Northern Forest Canoe Trail only.
On the Marble Mill side, right?
On the Marble Mill site. Literally down right near the site. And we'll have to just enforce it as best we can with the police department and hope for the best. So we are seeing, I think people, if you're around, you are seeing some unauthorized camping that the police department is addressing on a continual basis. So it's happening.
The other side?
All over town.
All over town?
All over the village, yeah. Different places, different times, and it's the same thing, right? It's not against the law to just be in the park. It's certainly not against the law to be unhoused, and we try to provide whatever wraparound services that we can, but we don't ignore the problem either. So we approach and offer services as best we can. The brush pile. So we have the 3 quotes in from 3 surveyors recommended by the state of Vermont. Heidi sent those back today to the state to verify that they met all the requirements. And if you recall, and many of you may not, we put a gate at the brush pile because it was getting abused for so many years, and it appears that we are not over the line into wetlands, but I think we're clearly over the line into the 50-foot buffer zone. So in all likelihood, we just got to get a clear delineation of that location and claw back whatever we have to and beg forgiveness from the state of Vermont and go from there. And then the trustees, you'll have a decision to make on what you want to do with the brush pile in the future. Let's talk about the hydro. Let's go good news first. Yes, there's occasionally some good news even in the hydro world. We did receive a $60,000 planning grant from the state of Vermont for the hydro facility, so that's really going to help us plan and prioritize all of the requisite repairs and things that we have going on out there. We know there's no shortage because it's an aging facility, and that is the hydro business.
And that's the building, correct?
That can be not so much the building, that's the turbines. That can be
yeah, whatever's enclosed
the
inside.
physical plant.
Yeah, the physical plant, okay. Yep.
I think everybody's very well aware that we had a bladder failure. And on the 24th, people came out, the vendor came out. That was the first pass. The vendor is HTE Engineering out of Utah. They're the ones that manufactured the rubber bladder. Installed in 2018, supposed to have a 15 to 20-year life expectancy. Clearly, not even close. PC Construction joined us on site, so we really need their expertise. And at this point, there's still a lot of unknowns. We don't have a quote at this point. We were joined on site by the FERC chief engineer, which is actually in the FERC dam world is a big deal. So we have to have a plan in place that is approved by the trustees when we know what those options are, and then it has to be approved by FERC. If at any point FERC is uncomfortable with that plan, they'll mandate that we remove the rubber bladder and start over. And starting over is not a great alternative. It would be very expensive. So fingers crossed, we'll know more. Their deadline to get us something is next Friday, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So we'll have something for the next meeting to chew on.
We may have, if I know it's definitively Friday, I may ask Diane 2 days in advance to do a 24-hour emergency executive session if it's contract, but I'll know more by the middle of next week. The electric department, regular updates or upgrades on Rollo Road. Again, that's our roadside increased reliability for this year, right? Anything cross-country, we're all moving roadside. That's one of the big things. I know I keep saying it, but it's true. We're making progress with AMI. In particular, with the water meters, we're over 200 installed. I think we're close to 250 now. So, and I'm going to look at Diane when I say this, because she's been involved with it to some degree. We're still working on a software glitch for us to install the electric meters. So we seem close.
We had a big meeting today, so I think they figured out a few more things.
Maybe closer. Yeah. Interviews begin, one interview this week, the rest of the interviews next week for the line maintainer position that we have. Lots of applicants.
Good.
Same stuff. It's all relatively new people entering the field that have been to line maintainer school. So you want to talk about a wide open interview process, this is going to be fun to see.
Great.
So, lots of interest. Moving down to water, the water quality report's been filed by Diane with the state of Vermont. We now have security cameras. We talked about this for a long time, but they're now at the reservoir, Swanton Beach, and starting next week, Foundry Street, wastewater, Marble Mill.
Oh, great.
So the ones at Marble Mill and Foundry will look both ways. Not yet, but for all of them, at some point, we will have access here in Al's old office, right through the wall, monitors, but the new technology, of course, is for the police or whomever, supervisors, will have it on their phone. Mm-hmm. So that's a good enhancement for sure. Wastewater, it's a grind. We're right in the middle of an $8 million upgrade, still due to be done the first week of January, with the normal hiccups and delays and little things that you wouldn't think. You'd think the centrifuge was bad. The back order of windows has been for 3 weeks preventing siding. It's just little things like that. But we're July 15th, whatever, 14th today. We're not far. We're 6 months away from that project being in the books, which took a long time.
Spinning? Not spinning yet?
Oh, the centrifuge is working.
Okay, good.
Yeah. However, the clarifiers are what's being worked on in the sludge pits, so there's no material to go through. So they're working, but we're not producing because we're in that stage of the project. Real quickly, the fire department, you've seen it. I think they do a really good job on Facebook. So they've been really busy with calls locally and mutual aid. I just wanted to point out the mutual aid stuff. Some people get frustrated. We were in Canada recently for a live fire and over in New York. And a lot of people, you hear them state, well, what about our own backyard? Well, we covered both because we had another critical call at the same time down on Campbell's Bay Road. And it's important to note that not recently on Lakewood Drive in West Swanton, we had mutual aid. New York was there. Canada would love to come across the border to help us at any time. So it's reciprocal and it's really beneficial. So they're doing a great job. And it's showing because I think they have 4 or 5 new people that could be over there for their meeting tonight. And if they all sign up, we'll be at 25 full-time volunteers. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's phenomenal. Really, really good. The PD, they come in and give their update all the time, but just one little thing. They just upgraded their antenna at the reservoir on their communications tower, night and day. For officer safety, you can hear them from anywhere.
No blind spotting or dead spot.
If they are, they're minimal.
Good.
So much, much better for all involved as it relates to that. And that's all I have except for executive session.
Just one shout out, 14 days, 13 days, 12 days.
Car show?
To the car show.
Car show.
So come on out and see.
And the block party the night before,
Yep.
25th at 5:30.
And I can comment on the water meter. I got mine, and a few other people that I know got theirs. It goes pretty quick, half an hour maybe. The teams that are coming in are very nice, professional.
Yeah, they were great. They came to our house in December last year.
Nice.
I think we were one of the first.
You had to be one of the first then.
Yeah, you're definitely one of the first. So fantastic. And so we're gonna.
What is it for? Contract, legal?
Legal, yes.
Legal, okay.
Yep.
I move that we find that we enter into executive session for the trustees to receive confidential legal information for which the premature disclosure to the general public would clearly place the trustees and others at a substantial disadvantage.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. To enter into executive session. All in favor? Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, Matt.